So if you have been struggling with beating binge eating and you've been at it for a while, these two things will help give you a bit of perspective as to why you are struggling with binge eating still. Okay, these are the two things that have to be in place in order to really beat binge eating forever. So if you're on, just pop hello below so I know who's on. It doesn't always tell me who's on. It says 2 eyeballs. Okay, so let's get straight to it. And I'll answer any questions along the way if you want some clarification or anything. So the first one that you need, the first thing that you need in order to beat binge eating forever is space. Okay, so what do I mean by space? What I mean by space is there's a binge eating cycle that happens, okay? And the only way that you're going to possibly break that cycle is if something shifts and something changes. You need to do something differently in order to break the cycle, essentially, okay? And allowing some space between having the urge to binge and actually binge eating is what needs to happen in order for you to break the cycle. So that's the first step. Like the first thing that needs to be in place is space. You need to have space between the urge to binge and you actually binge eating. So instead of, you have that urge to binge and then you just all of a sudden reach for food instinctually without thinking about it, you just reach for food. We need to create some space between that. So how do we do that? We can do that in numerous ways, but even simply acknowledging to yourself, okay, and saying it out loud can help as well. I have the urge to binge right now. Create space, because you're not just turning to food when those emotions and sensations happen in your body. I have the urge to binge right now. Interesting. And this is different than actually distracting yourself from the binge as well, okay? Creating space doesn't mean distracting yourself. Creating space means going into that space of discomfort, of uncomfortableness, yeah? So saying that I have the urge to binge right now. Breathing into your body, breathing into the discomfort of the sensations that are coming up. Create space as well. Setting a timer on your phone for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and just breathing and being like, okay, after these 5 minutes, once I've done this, then if I still want to binge, I can. But it's essentially going into the urge to binge versus distracting yourself from it is what I mean by creating space. You're creating space for that urge. You're creating space for that discomfort that is coming up for you. You're not distracting yourself from it. You're going into that discomfort somehow, some way. Okay? You're edging towards it versus pulling yourself away from that. The only way we can heal binge eating, guys, and I've worked with many, many women, the only way that you can do it isn't by distracting. It isn't by changing your behavior, by trying to eat less, or whatever it is. It's by going into that discomfort. Because that is the gift, and I've talked about this before, the gift of the urge. It's about going into it. You need to understand and experience that discomfort of the emotions that are going on underneath that urge if you're ever going to transform your relationship with food. Okay? Now, so that's number one, space. You have to have some space between the urge to binge in order for something to happen, right? That's where you're breaking the cycle. Number two is curiosity. You have to be curious towards the part of you that is binge eating. You have to have an attitude of curiosity. I wonder why I am binge eating right now, or I wonder why I feel the urge to binge because I'm not physically hungry, so I wonder why I'm feeling this urge to binge right now. Hi Effie, how are you? And this is super important as well. And curiosity is one of the things that is the most challenging for people that struggle with binge eating as well. Really, really hard. Because a part of you doesn't like that you're doing this behavior. That's where the frustration comes in. Why are you doing this? Why do you keep doing this? It says to the part that's binge eating. And you say this in your head. There's a part of you that's doing the binge eating, a part of you that's judging and criticizing yourself for it. And that is the part we need to look at. Because while you're in criticism of that part of you that's binge eating, you can't have curiosity. And the curiosity has to be there in order for you to really relate to this part differently. Because essentially what we want to have happen is understand why this part of you is binge eating. Understand what need it gets met through binge eating. Why it's trying to protect you through binge eating. What role it plays and why it's trying to binge eat. Like, what is it trying to achieve by doing that? And you won't know this until you can actually get curious enough to hear the answers that this part is sharing. And this part needs to feel safe. When if someone's in judgment of you and they're like, I need to know why you're upset. I need to know why you're angry or whatever. And they're upset with you and they don't create a space that feels kind of safe to actually for you to be vulnerable and open up, then you don't feel like opening up, right? So you need to provide, but if someone were to come up to you and is like, hey, like, I know I can feel that something's going on. Like, what is it that you, like, do you need anything from me? I really want to know what's going on for you. And really being vulnerable and curious about what's going on for you versus like judgmental and critical, then you feel safe enough to open up, right? And so we need to provide this same space and the same curiosity for this part of us that is binge eating.